Ladies and gentlemen, as I film this video, there is a wildfire not far from my home. Not far as in maybe a 20-minute drive. I mean, I'm not under evacuation order. But it did bring out some memories. Parts of my county are under evacuation order. Let me set this down so it doesn't fall. And I had myself some water that was a little too lemony. And I've got myself some ginger beer here. So I figured I'd have some rum and ginger beer, lemon ginger beer, and talk about something that happened to me in youth. You see, I've always lived in areas where wildfires were common. Lived in California my whole life. When I was a child, there was a wildfire. And I remember that they said it was started by a homeless man trying to keep warm. And they arrested the homeless man. And one of my friends said, now he's warm. He's got 3 meals a day. And he's happy. Maybe what we should do to this guy is get one of those claws, those loin cloths, and stick him in the forest and let him suffer. Now, mind you, back in this time, homelessness was not as prevalent. So we could afford to be a little less tolerant of the homeless. But I have to ask the question, did this guy have anywhere to go before he started this fire? I mean, it's a real question that you have to ask is, this guy went out there and he started a fire to keep warm. Should we have, as a society, have taken better care of him? I mean, people aren't guaranteed a job. People slip through the cracks. People become homeless. And, I mean, it used to be if you were mentally ill, you couldn't take care of yourself, we had a place for you. It might not have been a good place, but we had a place for you. Now, we don't have that. I spent 6 years of my life working with the homeless. I could tell you working with the homeless is hard. And some of them prefer the freedom of the street. Because at a homeless shelter, you can't have your drugs. We told one guy, I do recall, this was more than 10 years ago, told one guy, look, just don't bring it in here, you're fine. So he's like, all right, I'm going to nip out before breakfast and smoke myself some reefer. And it's like, dude, no, you can't do that. You can't come back high either. You got to smoke when you're out there. You got to be done when you're out there. You got to sober up and come back. That's the rules. And I mean, I've met people who every 45 minutes they got to get high. I don't know where they get the money for that stuff, but okay. I remember that I worked with a guy. Every 45 minutes he'd excuse himself to his car. He'd smoke himself a blunt or whatever it is he would do. He'd come back a little glazed, and it's like, just constantly got to keep that feeling because my life sucks. Okay. It's a problem when you're at work, but they did remove him. I don't know if that was why, but Of course, then I knew another guy. He was related to the owner of the company, and he'd open his car and there'd be a smoke cloud. He'd get pulled from all kinds of places. When you're family, you get away with it. You know, anyone should be able to get a job, work a full time week, and be able to cover their needs. That's what minimum wage is. You know, if you're working a full time job and you can't afford an apartment, then minimum wage is too low. That's how minimum wage works. That's how we as a people have defined minimum wage. Now, minimum wage is going up, and it's like I was working jobs where it's like, why is it a restaurant worker now has a higher minimum wage than me? I don't understand. But it's like one of the things about me as a worker. I remember I applied for a part time job, and it's like no, we need you like 30 hours a week. This is not. This is a part time job, but I mean it's not. You can have another job. It's we expect you to survive off this. We just don't want to pay for the medical benefits, so we're not giving you a full time job. And this has been a major issue, is that, basically speaking, we as a society should turn around and say, okay, we're going to bill you so much for every worker, for every work hour, and we're going to use that money to give everybody health care. Okay? This is what should be happening, is the government should have a stipend for health care. And it's like, all right, this is what I can get health care for. There's the bottom of the line free stuff that sucks, and then there's higher end stuff that I would have to pay more for. But basically speaking, I should always be able to have health care no matter how poor I am. That's just one of those things. And I mean, look, I've been on various kinds of health care. I remember there was one time I lost my job. I didn't have health care, and I got the lowest tier health care that the system could provide. It was all free, but like I remember they were trying to push me to take every test they possibly could, because that's how they got money out of the government. All right? And is there something wrong with that? I don't know. All right? I mean, I heard there was one homeless person who in Las Vegas cost the state $3 million in emergency room visits in 1 year. And it's like, if he had health care, I don't know what would have been the difference. All right? But I can tell you that health care is important, and we as a nation should have addressed this by now. Excuse me, I burped. This is some good stuff. I think I used too much rum. Anyway, one of those sad truths about this world is that America lags behind. There was a time in human history where this nation was the shining city on the hill. That time was after World War II, during the Cold War. We were the leaders of the free world. That time is effectively over. Being on top isn't easy. And we're a big nation. Being a big nation, it's easier for us to reach higher. It's like a tall man reaching the higher shelves. But being a big nation, we require the right amount of law, not too much and not too little. And there are people who say, we should deregulate everything. And it's like, no. There has to be an acceptable level of regulation. The system cannot regulate itself, because when the system tries to regulate itself, there's always a problem. So, back to this fellow that started a fire to keep warm and burnt down a bunch of trees. I don't know if he committed a crime. I don't know the details. The question is, could he have reached out for help? could someone have helped him? If help was something that he just didn't reach out for, then he was guilty. You know, you need to go to a church, you need to go to a shelter. Were there beds available? Was there somebody who could give him a bed? You know, I remember as a security officer working in a homeless shelter that there were times when we had people who were just problematic, but there was no place for us to send them. So we had to keep them because we couldn't just turn them out on the street. But if somebody was already on the street, we didn't have any obligation to take them in. We have so many beds. I mean, there was one person who came up to me, you can't force me to live on the street. It's like, I'm not forcing you to live on the street. I'm just saying you can't live here. I mean, you want to call for services, I can assist you. I can call 411 and I can say, hey, are there any beds available? But, management is the one that's going to decide whether you can sleep here or not. I don't have any control over that decision. And I can tell you that now there just aren't enough beds. All right? And maybe there are enough beds for the people that are willing to sleep in them. But, one of the things about being homeless is that in order to go to a shelter, they ask you to throw out most of what you own, which is not exactly ideal. I wrote a letter to the governor myself saying, people want to sleep in tents. We should let them sleep in tents. We should give them a place where they should sleep so that they're not, bothering people. I mean, it's like, I live next to an abandoned Fry's, and it's like, okay, there's an abandoned Fry's there. Well, it's abandoned. There's something going on there, but for the longest time it was just empty, and I think there were guard services to keep the homeless out. Well, somewhere there's got to be a business, an old mall, something where we can have them set their tents up in the parking lot, and then we can have them live there. Give them showers, give them bathrooms, give them laundry services, open up a soup kitchen so that they can have food, and, let them live there. Give them lot numbers so that people can give them mail. Make the transition back to an apartment easier. This is one of those things that I've said before, it's like, look, we got to work with the homeless, not against them. If someone is homeless, we should encourage them to ask for help. We shouldn't put them through hoops to get that help. We should make getting that help as easy as possible. We should make our society more friendly to the average person. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Why don't you tell me yours out in the comments below? I'm Richard.
Oogog, Erganog. Daniel Ducky say YouTube gods need long outro so I can tell you comment, like, and subscribe so that this channel can pull trash out of ocean by buying matrices from 4Ocean. Also, links to new video now appear. Comment, like, and subscribe, or be cursed by Ugatha. Daniel Ducky approves.